Greetings again everyone. A while ago I asked my subscribers which vintage lenses, if any, they'd like me to test out on this channel, and the most asked for one was the famous Jupiter-9 85mm f2. Fortunately, it's also one of the few vintage lenses people suggested which is abundantly available and affordable, so I present to you Exhibit A. The Jupiter-9 is a manual focus portrait lens for full-frame cameras made in the Soviet Union from the early 50s until the USSR collapsed, and it's commonly available on both M39 and M42 screw mounts, maybe others as well. This one is M39, and so I'll be adapting it onto my Sony a7R III for this test. You can find these lenses for about £100 or a little over $100 over on eBay. It's a popular lens even today because it's so cheap, it can be adapted easily onto almost any camera, and a lot of people speak highly of the quality of its bokeh. The outer appearance of the lens has changed over time, and later ones may use different coatings. Take a look online if you want to know more about this lens's history, but the serial number of this one indicates it was manufactured in 1960, so it's 63 years old now. I wonder what interesting historical pictures this lens might have captured in its lifetime. I can tell you now though, it's in very good condition with clear glass, one of the best I could find on eBay. Towards the end of its lifetime they started multi-coating the glass in this lens, giving better resistance to flaring as a result. These lenses tend to look a little different on the outside also, but apart from the coating thing, over its lifetime the optics essentially stayed the same. My copy of this lens was long and thin, with quite a narrow front filter size of only 49mm. I'm not one for doing smell tests, but when I did give this one a sniff, its aroma of cold metal and old grease reminded me of every Second World War museum I'd ever been to as a child. The focus ring turns very smoothly and nice and precisely, and at normal distances as well as closer distances, making it easy to manually focus, well, with a little practice. As you can see here, the lens's older design makes it pretty vulnerable to focus breathing, which video makers should bear in mind. In front of the focus ring comes an aperture ring which turns very smoothly from f2 down to f22, although the spacing is very uneven, getting super narrow as you stop down. My copy of the lens didn't come with a hood, and obviously it's way too old for image stabilization or electronic contacts or anything like that. Overall, this is exactly the build quality you should expect of a Soviet lens. Quite nice, actually. Anyway, that's enough of the niceties. Let's roll up our Soviet sleeves and check out the image quality. As I mentioned, I'll be testing this thing on a Sony a7R III camera with its challenging 42MP sensor. At f2, we see only average sharpness, but very low contrast, and some purple colour fringing peeping through. Image quality in the corners is absolutely dreadful, unfortunately. Stop down to f2.8 and those corners see a lot more sharpness, but no other improvement. The middle of the image is looking much punchier now, although contrast still suffers from a little ghosting on contrasting edges. f4 looks a bit sharper, f5.6 very sharp in the middle. However, image corners here are still looking very weak. f8 and f11 see small, gradual improvement, but even top down, colour fringing remains quite a serious problem. Here's f16 for anyone interested. It's just gotten softer due to the effect of diffraction at such dark apertures. Overall, well, the image quality here is unsurprisingly just plain dated. I know the thing was never intended for such high resolution cameras of course, but still I was disappointed here. Okay, let's see about distortion and vignetting. The lens projects almost no distortion, but at f2 those corners look very dark. Stop down to f2.8 or f4 and they brighten right up. The lens's minimum focus distance is a rather annoying 1.15 meters, although my understanding is that some versions of this lens could focus down to 80 centimeters. Anyway, at close distances, the lens is even a little softer at f2 than at normal distances. f2.8 sees an improvement, and at f4, the lens is quite sharp when shooting close up. Let's see how the lens performs against bright lights now. Whoa! This is some serious, opaque and colourful flaring, getting all over the place and ruining the image. Well, unless you like this sort of flaring, of course, in which case you'll have no problem catching it with this lens. stop down to f2.8, then f4 to see a major improvement. Still, this will cause you serious contrast issues when you're shooting wide open. This lens is quite popular for its bokeh characteristic, so let's take a look at that now. It doesn't really produce the widely coveted swirly bokeh effect, but strong soap bubble outlining at f2 creates a distinctive and busy looking background, which is actually quite interesting to behold. And finally, related to bokeh comes longitudinal chromatic aberration. At f2, the image is a bit too hazy to actually see anything here. Stop down to f2.8 and some colourful fringing can be seen on bokeh highlights. It's still there a little at f4 and even a touch at f5.6, so that's a poor show really. Overall, well, I do understand that this lens has its fans, and it certainly has a unique bokeh characteristic that some people really like. Its images do look interesting, but beyond that, well, technically this is a lens long past its use-by date in all kinds of ways, and I was really disappointed by its performance, although considering its age, not all that surprised. Anyone considering buying this lens should do so for the specific and admittedly interesting look of its images, and definitely not its performance, which is beset with problems. Okay, thanks for watching everyone. If you find yourselves stalking my channel often for lens reviews, then check out my Patreon page. You'll find some exclusive bonus content there which might be interesting, and supporters do make a huge difference to me keeping these tests going, even if they upset vintage lens enthusiasts from time to time. God bless everyone, and ciao for now.